and hope that in future this country, particularly the government of India, because this taxation route is mostly concentrated in the government of India level. At state level, there hardly much of a direct and indirect tax proposition where it can do it. But since the state governments get a share of it, the state governments do use it for this affirmative action. And with these concerns, with this very low level of compliance with the constitution requirement and humanistic attitude, let's hope that with efforts like PAPSI and its counterparts, our position would go up from 36 onwards into the top 10. We are number 3 in the number of billionaires in the world. We should be number 3 in terms of inclusive growth. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I request Professor Mishra, Director, Institute of Public Enterprise, to introduce the Honorable Speaker, Professor Thorat, Chairman, ICSSR.
Thank you, Kiran. Once again, I welcome our respected Chairman and President, Sri Madhava Garu, and the Speaker for today, very eminent Speaker, Professor Sukhdev Thorat. Let me speak something about Professor Sukhdev Thorat. When you talked about poverty and inclusive growth, one thing that has come up very sharply is that education can change the destiny of such people. And Professor Thorat, as UGC chairman, did that. He was the first UGC chairperson who made the government agree to spend 48,000 crore on education. The spend before that was just 4,800 crore. 12-fold increase, and went through not one or two layers, several layers, finally impressing upon the cabinet, then cabinet, yes, that this is worthwhile to do that. That was, I think, a very big step, and that brought India closer, I think, to some of the so-called developed countries. Not only that, during last couple of years, he has been trying to mold research in a way which could help challenge the problem of poverty. There are 29 institutes in India, and in all those 29 institutes, the research that is being done has a focus on poverty elimination. And I'll say that he's the true disciple of Gunnar Myrdal, the Nobel laureate, who told in 1974 that poverty anywhere is the danger to prosperity everywhere. That's what our respected President Madhava Garu also told. Dr. Thorat is such an eminent person that even policy makers could not deny him a Padma Shri. He was awarded Padma Shri by the Government of India in the year 2008. He was chairman UGC for full 5 years. Then he became chairman of ICSSR, continues to be the chairman of ICSSR, and during his period, like what he did in the case of UGC, the budget of ICSSR has increased manifold. And during his period, IPE has the proud privilege of becoming second institution out of 29 in terms of publications, in terms of ranking. Deepak Nair committee has given the report which has adjudged IPE is number 2 in the gamut of the ICSSR institutions. The same privilege goes to IPE under the presidency of Sri Madhava Garu also. Ministry of Education has ranked management institutes in India. There are 4,000 such management institutes. IPE has rated as number 1 in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, and 35 all over India among these 4,000 institutes. Sri Sukhdev Thorat ji has held many positions. He is a leading professor at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. He is on boards of several public and private enterprises, and he has been selected for many awards. Dr. Ambedkar Chetna Award, Bharat Shiromani Award, Purushottam Award, Vidyalankar Award, Milind Samta Purushkar, and several other awards. He is going to talk on a very, very important theme, inclusive growth. The theory of growth started with Schulz in 1951 And Schulz thought that GDP alone can be answer to all economic ills in the world. He gave that, but then there was much discussion by Professor Rostov afterwards. And Professor Rostov talked of 5 stages of growth. Then came Rosenstein-Rodan, and Rosenstein-Rodan talked of sectors, contribution of different sectors in the growth. But they never thought about the impact of growth, in which direction growth should go. And that's what I think Professor Thoraj is going to talk today. He'll talk about types of growth. There are different types of growth. We have growth where we call it jobless growth. We call it growth which our president has just observed, where inequities are increasing, I think. That's what I think Thomas Piketty in his recent work, he has brought out very clearly that inequities in the world are increasing, and world, I think, is sitting on a time bomb. This time bomb can explode any time. And something I think should be done about it. But then it is this growth theory, it traveled I think further down, and we had Meyer and Baldwin, they too talked about that. But then later on I think, the current economists, they have been talking about what kind of growth we should have. As our president has just observed, should growth be only for some section of society, for some people, for some time? Can we have a higher rate of growth? And can we leave people behind, I think, us who have no access to education, who have no access to health facilities, who have no access to, this increased income, I think, which is there, the country is accumulating. A study has come out, and they say the good news is that inequality seems to be slowing down. But the bad news is that innovation-driven economic growth in poorer countries tends to increase competitiveness, but also inequality. I think that's the point I think President Madhav was pointing out. We are also now working on competition. We want to be competitive. We want to do much more on that. We want to do much more on innovations. But when we walk the path of competitiveness, when we walk the path of innovations, then there is a danger also of enhancing inequalities. How do we resolve, I think, this riddle? That, I think, is a very, very important question. I don't think we can have anybody better than Professor Thorat, who can, I think, guide us in that. Friends, you should also know that IP has been organizing distinguished lecture every year. And in this lecture series, we had Amrit Sen. Professor Thorat quotes Amrit Sen in his paper, and he talks about the issues in growth, clarity about growth. We had Jagdish Bhagwati also, extremely opposite, to what Sen used to teach us in Delhi University. We had very distinguished people. Today, we have another distinguished senior economist who is globally known and who is with us. Sir, if you could join me, give a big round of applause to Professor Thorat, who has spared his valuable time to come to us. Growth is not an easy thing. We have to work very hard. And let me tell you, I had to work very hard to make Professor Sukhdev Thorat agree to come and address us. On that occasion, let me also greet, I think, Mr. Modi, who has taken over only, I think, a couple of days back as the president of FAPSI. He unfolded the plan, how FAPSI will go forward. I am very sure FAPSI will lead both Telangana and Andhra Pradesh to new heights. And these will be the engines of growth for this country in the times to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mishra. I take pleasure in inviting Professor Thorat, Chairman, Indian Council of Social Science Research, Ministry of HRD, Government of India, to deliver the distinguished lecture on inclusive growth. Sir.
Sri Ravindra Modi, President of Federation Telangana Andhra Pradesh Chambers of Commerce, Sri Madhav Rao, the President of IPE and former Secretary, Government of Andhra Pradesh, Dr. R.K. Mishra, Director of API, and Gaura Srinivas, Senior Vice President. Ladies and gentlemen, well, let me first thank both the Chamber of Commerce and the Institute of Public Enterprises for giving me this opportunity to be with you and share some of my views on the inclusive growth. Well, I won't say anything by way of introduction. I am very happy that I am here, and I had a wonderful discussion with Sri Modi ji, and I benefited from that discussion. I decided to speak on inclusive growth, the concept which has become quite popular. We traveled from the World Bank to the 11th plan and 12th plan. If you look at the 11th plan and 12th plan, it specifically mention about inclusive growth as a strategy of economic development. But we have a capacity to mold it and accommodate it to our own requirement. And the new aspect of the concept of growth we normally tend to forget. So therefore what I will do today, I won't talk much about what happened in India. I will did that at the end a little bit. But I think we need to understand the journey from growth alone to inclusive growth. Or in fact the step ahead is the pro-poor growth, because inclusive growth also hide the pro-poor dimension of the growth. So therefore many of them began to talk about pro-poor growth as a major constituent of inclusive growth. Now let us understand the journey, and then let us try to see where does India stand. What is the theoretical base of the growth alone concept? The theoretical basis of the growth alone concept began with Simon Kuznets in 1956. Simon Kuznets brought out the experience of 125 countries of economic growth. But that book doesn't deal with the economic growth alone, but it deals with income distribution and poverty. After all, the purpose of having a growth in the income is to bring the improvement in the life of the people through increasing their income. And that means reducing poverty, that is providing access to food, providing access to education, health, drinking water, sanitation and housing. So in generally the purpose behind increasing the income is to improve the standard of living of the people. Now what was the thinking of Simon Kuznets at that time on growth in the income and its relation with income distribution and poverty or well-being of the people? Because Simon Kuznets' theory remained in operation for several years and decades, and which includes the policy of the World Bank as well as the policy of several developing countries and developed countries. Now, Simon Kuznets' major empirical finding, and then later on it turned into a hypothesis, is that that we should focus on growth. That is to say that we should increase the income, the national income. But national income is not the indicator, it is combined with another indicator, namely population. Merely increasing the income is not good enough. Whether the income of a person per person or per capita increase or not, what is the income that is ultimately come in the hand of an individual person. So therefore per capita income, growth in the per capita income was the indicator which was used by Kuznets and many others. And the hypothesis was that the experience of some of these 120 or odd countries was that the economic growth increased the per capita income of the people and thereby brings the improvement in the standard of living. But it also cautioned, if you are familiar, some of you who are economists, that he gave that inverted curve. That is, as there is increase in the growth in the income distribution became unequal in the earlier phases of economic growth or development. What does that mean? That as the income increases, say for example 5%, 6%, 7%, 8% per annum, and the per capita income increases, the tendency is that a larger portion of that increased income goes to the relatively better off section, and a relatively small portion of that increased income goes to the those whose income is relatively less. So the poor or the people with a lesser income benefit less. They do benefit. Poor benefit less out of the increased income, and relatively better off, those who have a higher income, they benefit more. That was the first part of the hypothesis of the Kuznets, that in the early phases of economic growth, when the income increases, a relatively larger portion of that increased income, or what we call in economics marginal income, goes in the hand of relatively better off person as compared to the poor or less people with less income. It's not that the poor do not benefit, they do benefit. It's a question of relative share. For example, if your income increased by 10%, so increase in the income from 100 to 110, where does that 10 additional 10 goes? So the Kuznets would say that in the earlier phases, maybe 6 rupees or 7 rupees goes to the relatively better off, and only 3 or 4 rupees goes to the worse off. That was his first part of his hypothesis. The second part of his hypothesis was that, don't worry, a plateau will reach, after which, maybe after 20 years, maybe after 15 years or 20, 30 years, the growth will become more pro-poor. That is, as the income increases again by the 10% or 7% or 8%, a relatively larger portion of that increased income, additional income, will land in the hand of poor. And thereby the power inequality in income distribution will reduce and poor will benefit. This is called the inverted curve of Kuznets, that along with the growth, inequality increases in the beginning, which means poor benefit less, but after some time there is a plateau, and then thereafter the poor benefit increasingly more than the non-poor, and the inequality increases. So don't worry, growth alone is important. Don't worry about any state intervention, leave the things to the market, and market will take care, but this will be the sequence of growth and income distribution and poverty. And this hypothesis of Kuznets, this thinking of Kuznets on growth, its relation with income inequalities and poverty, I am trying to make it as simple as possible, remained there in the literature for several decades. And it influenced the policy of Europe as well as the developing country and other countries. That's the first part of it. But in the 80s, doubt began to be expressed. When the Latin American growth scenario came up, the people discovered, some of the economists discovered that growth had increased, income has increased, and even in a relatively longer period of time when the plateau was supposed to be reached, the relative share of the poor in the income was less, and as a result poverty did not decline as much as it should decline. So increase in the income coincided with the high level of poverty. And people began to then doubt the Kuznets hypothesis that even after a substantially longer period of time, the income is not getting transferred to the poor and poverty is not declining as much as it should decline. There were a number of studies then. This inverted view curve, what factor determined that after a certain period of time, income will reach to the poor and poverty will decline or inequality will decline. And I think one of the most earlier work were by the Indian economists like Montesquieu Ahluwalia, when he was the director of the IMF Institute, and Popnik and many others. And they brought out a literature, there were Popnik's books, very famous, Redistributive Growth. And then they discovered that the Kuznets hypothesis of initial increase in the inequality and later decline in inequality in helping poor is not automatic. There are certain conditions on which this income distribution in the process of economic growth depends. And they observed that if there is a modernization of industry, industry being modernized from informal sector to the formal sectors, that there is a human resource development, education of the people increases, their capability increases, and that their employability increases, that there is a substantial public investment by the government, if this happen, under this condition they observed of many countries, that poor tend to benefit then in the second phase then. If industrialization is modernized, if educational development takes place so that people can make use of job, if government expenditure is there on infrastructure which promote the growth by the private sector and other aspect. So there is the question that the Kuznets hypothesis that it will help the poor in the second phase is not automatic unless you follow certain strategies of growth. So they began to emphasize not on growth alone, but they say type of growth. Certain type of growth may help poor and certain type of growth may not allow the transfer of poor income to the poor. You know, therefore, economists would know and you would know here that the Simon Kuznets mechanism of transferring the income to the poor was through the trickle-down hypothesis. You know, trickle-down hypothesis. That he said that in the second phase, income will trickle down to the poor, and that will be essentially through the increase in employment and productive employment. But to be able to take the advantage of employment, there is need of education and skill so that they can participate in labor market. So this trickle-down, automatic trickle-down, without any interference by the government, was the thinking of Kuznets, and therefore some of this writing, they began to raise the doubts, and they say that, look, type of growth is very important. You cannot say that any growth will automatically transfer the income to the poor and reduce poverty. So therefore, in the 2000 and around that time, you discover is that there was a rethinking in the World Bank. There was another aspect that this thinking came to the Latin American experience, where in the process of growth, poverty remained relatively high. But there was a miracle of the Asian countries. There was a significant growth in Asian countries, Japan, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, all those countries, Korea, South Korea and others, where growth was there, but at the same time, poverty reduced very significantly. But this country had not followed the traditional model of growth which is prescribed by the World Bank. They had followed a different mechanism. It was not entirely